Heritage Sports Podcast. We are here to talk about Travis Hunter. As we all know, he has decided to transfer from Jackson State to Colorado. But this episode is really, really good. I want to give my insight on whether he should be a wide receiver full time. And I'll just say this all started with Deion Sanders talking with Shannon Sharp. And during that Club Shay Shay interview, Deion basically made the comment that Travis Hunter came to Jackson State to learn from him, and he wants to be a DB. But he could see when he plays, like he's been around the kid all the time. So when he was healthy and playing, he likes DB. He doesn't love being a DB. He knows he can be defensive back. He can be cornerback in the league. He has all the tools and stuff like it. But he said for a fact, Travis Hunter loves being a wide receiver, and you can see it. You can see it on film. He's electric at wide receiver. Electric. He can get the ball and make something happen, tight spaces. He can run routes. His routes and his explosion is uncanny, which you can see why he was the number one recruit. And one thing I want to say, just to give a comparison, he reminds me a lot, if people remember, he's a longtime Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, Jeremy Maclin. He came out of the University of Missouri. He was just as electric. He was just this quick twitch, can just go for these long 20, 30-yard catches at any given time and make it happen. And he's sort of a bigger kid, kind of like Travis is. You can tell Travis has room to get more muscular, which is crazy. He can grow into his body, and if he keeps that same kind of speed, I could definitely see him doing well at wide receiver on that level. And it's something that even Coach Prime said he loves to do that, whether it was chemistry with Shedeur, whether that was his just all-out talent in high school. So let me move to the other side of it. He said he likes playing DB, and you could see it in the Celebration Bowl and throughout the year. To me, I want to say a famous quote by, I want to say Serena Williams, just paraphrasing. She basically says she knows she's great, and during some of her tennis matches, she loses because she's bored. She's like not into it, and that, to me, that was more towards the latter part of her career. And she was saying that in order for her to get up for it, she has to be on the brink of losing to finally get locked in. And that happens with great players. Like, I've played with great players. Sometimes it gets boring, especially if they don't love what they're doing at the current time. And I think that is embedded into what Coach Prime was saying. He likes playing DB. That doesn't mean he's focused in on each and every play. When you love something, you get a chance to do something and you're enthusiastic about it, you're going to be a whole lot more locked in on it. Whether that's running routes, whether it's beating the person in front of you, whether that's catching the ball, trying to make a big play, getting on the same page with your quarterback, staying late after practice to do those kind of things. It's easy to stay late and run routes with your quarterback. As a defensive back, the defensive backs I've seen that I play with that have been drafted in the NFL, when they did stuff after practice, they loved it, but they didn't have that chemistry. They were running, they were doing drills, they were, working on their sprints and making sure they had enough to sustain themselves throughout the game. So doing basically drills and what do you call that? Getting their lung capacity up so they won't get tired throughout the game. When you're a wide receiver and you're playing with your quarterback, even if it's just you and him, it's you running routes for a particular person. There's a chemistry with that. Nobody's going to run routes for you as a DB after practice just to make sure you're good. That doesn't really happen like that. Moving on. If you saw in the Celebration Bowl, the North Carolina Central University wide receivers were burning Travis up. Now, to be fair, it wasn't just him, but they were burning him up. And that's North Carolina Central wide receivers. We're not talking about the Pac-12 just yet. The receivers they got, the quarterbacks they got. We're talking about North Carolina Central University wide receivers who are I'm sure the best in the MEAC and really good and hard to cover. But you could tell that Travis wasn't there. I've put it in videos before. It didn't seem like he was locked in. He was locked in on the offensive end. And in the second half, I think he got a whole lot better, especially when the defense needed to be firmer and to close down the gap in the scores in order for it to go to overtime. But that brings it back to my point. If he wasn't locked in, he could have been bored. Great players get bored doing stuff they like. They rarely get bored when they're doing stuff they love. So if I am Coach Prime and I'm the wide receivers coach and I'm the offensive coordinator up there in Colorado, I'm keeping my defensive coordinator in college, Charles Kelly, away. Like, look, he is going to be a whole lot more fresher if he, does the return game, if he runs routes. I think that is what I would say. He has his biggest impact on the college level and the pro level, being a return man and a wide receiver full time. And don't get me wrong, in a pinch, like say if it's a bad week and DBs are injured, he could definitely fill in at any given time. He could be a nickelback, he could be a corner, he could be a safety, whatever. Especially on those prevent kind of defenses where it's 3rd and 30 something and the team is going to have to throw deep, or there's Hail Marys before the end of the first half or the second half, whatever. Of course, put him in. I'm not saying he's exclusive, but those are pinch kind of situations. They should not be the norm. So moving on, I want to talk about, if you like something as a DB in the Pac-12, that's not the conference to do it. You want to be in a conference where they just run the ball most of the time, and that's not necessarily, the Pac-12 all the time. If you like something in cornerback, you don't expect there to be a lot of throwing. Maybe you can mask it, but in the Pac-12, I don't think you can. So the Pac-12 receivers, I watched Penix last night, a few nights ago for their bowl game at the University of Washington. The kid can absolutely throw it. Side note, he needs to wear way smaller shoulder pads. I don't know what he's doing. It looks like the shoulder pads on top of his neck, but hey, that's the way he wants to wear it. Penix can throw the football. He can spin it. So the DBs have to be locked in on each and every play. You want to talk about, Utah's basically balanced. They'll run the ball. They'll be physical, but they can still throw the ball. I mean, they've been a competent team. Now you get to Caleb and them. I would expect Travis to be up for the challenge if he had to play Caleb as a defensive back, but that's not the person you want to go against if that's not what you want to do. Not on the defensive side, because he is going to be extremely precise. He's one of the more accurate quarterbacks I've ever seen. So the Pac-12, and they're going to have the UCLA kid. He came in for DRC in the last bowl game when he got hurt with his back, and he came in. I don't know the backup quarterback's name, but it looked like he could spin it. And if he's going to be the number one quarterback coming in, because DRC's out of eligibility out there in UCLA, he's going to throw the ball. So it's not just going to be them. Cal Berkeley throws the ball. The Cal Bears love to throw the ball around. I don't know what they expect out of Arizona State, but Arizona State's head coach is the former offensive coordinator at Oregon with Bo Nix. They threw the ball a lot. Bo Nix threw and ran the ball a lot. So Oregon, and Bo Nix is coming back for his 18th year of eligibility. He's going to be throwing the ball. So my overall point is, if he's not going to be locked in as a defensive back, if it's something that he likes and not loves, you're going to have to put him at wide receiver, bro. I mean, it is what it is. If he loves that and he can't be covered and he's electric, let him focus on that. I'm not trying to take away from the kid's snaps at all. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think this is the conference to do something you like. I don't think this is the conference, or being in a Power 5 conference, to do something that you like. Because it's not so much getting exposed, because I'm sure he can play well and cover everybody. But you're like wasting your football snaps on something that you aren't the best at. If you're going to be best at something and be all world, you should focus on that. In Deion's interview, Coach Prime's interview with Shannon, he basically said, man, I could have went to the Hall of Fame as a wide receiver. Every time he touched the ball, it was 20-something yards. And when he talked, if you looked at him, you heard him talk, that's not what he wanted to do. When he Coach Prime went off when he was telling about a San Francisco 49ers story, and he was like, I don't want people to look like they beat me on a play as a defensive back. And he got into a physical altercation with a safety in the story, he said. And he was just mad. Like, you could tell he was that locked in on being dominant on the defensive end. That's what he loved. Like, he got into another mode when he talked about that. But when he was talking about being on offense and being a wide receiver for the Cowboys and averaging however much, he was like, yeah, I could have did it. That's no problem. I would have been a Hall of Famer. But you could tell by his fervor went down. It was like, yeah, I could have done that, but that's not what I wanted to do. What he wanted to do was be a defensive back, and he was a first ballot Hall of Famer as a defensive back. The way he talked and the way kind of he paused to say, "Oh yeah, I would have been in the Hall of Fame as wide receiver if I was a wide receiver only." It kind of seemed to me, he's like, "Yeah, I'd have been fourth or fifth ballot, but I would have made it in." That's because he liked something. If you love something, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, and he was the first ballot, and it wasn't without question. And right now, he's still regarded the best cornerback of all time, and that's not even debatable. You can't even go to the barbershop and talk who's the best defensive back. Who do you want to have people locked down? Who was feared? Who turned the ball over? Who had pick sixes? Who, did the high steps all the way to the end zone? There's no question who that was. So, in all that to say is he's the best cornerback of all time, which is one of the reasons why Travis Hunter went up there. But I think you got to let the talent show where it is. He also, real quick, Coach Prime also told a story about how Shiloh and Shedeur played quarterback at the same time, growing up. And it got to a point where even though Shiloh loved to play quarterback, he didn't have what he didn't say, but from what I could understand, that position wasn't for him. You're not going to do as well on that position. And that's what bared out. And I think that's what's going to bear out with Travis Hunter. He needs, to me, focus more on wide receiver because he's absolutely unbelievable. He catch the ball, make a play, and go 40, 50 yards. That's how you get paid real well on Sunday, my friend. It really is. Jeremy Maclin made a lot of money in the league, and he could definitely be better than him. He could be whatever he wants to be. So that's what I would say. I think Travis Hunter's best talents are returning wide receiver and maybe the best route. Spot duty on a defensive back end. But y'all let me know what y'all think. This is a fun time. It's going to be great going into the offseason, talking about how all the team fits come up, especially up there in Boulder. Anyway, until next time, Heritage Sports.